Good morning, everybody. Good morning to those of you in the room and those of you listening in online. Welcome to the ABL Maritime Market Briefing for February 2024. My name is Mark McGurran. I'm the Global Managing Director for Maritime here at ABL. And this month, we're going to be talking about super yachts. Let me just get this going. Our briefing this morning is accredited by the Chartered Insurance Institute, and delegates can claim up to 1 CPDR for your participation. We will therefore be keeping a record of those in the room today and those of you logging in online. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you sign in with the team at the desk outside. Sorry about that. So we can keep the accreditation up to date. And also you'll be receiving an email following the webinar, including those of you who are watching online. We'll be ending the webinar portion of the briefing today and for our future market briefings after the technical presentation. And the marine casualty reports moving forward from this presentation will only be presented in person here at Lloyd's. Of course, we're happy to discuss with anyone who would like more information on them after the briefing, and we can look at how we might be able to make that data available to you. But as I said, from now on, we're going to be doing the case reports only in person here at Lloyd's. Any questions, please come and see me afterwards or drop me an email. I'm delighted today to introduce our technical presenters. Adam Jackson will be giving the technical part of our presentation, and Adam is the head of ABL Yachts. Adam is salt of the earth like myself, marine engineer, ex-cruise ship lad, and also a qualified naval architect. Following that, Jasper Gaskin, who is a mechanical engineer, will be giving our case reports, again, only to those of you in the room. Jasper is a mechanical engineer who's currently working with Longitude in our London office, carrying out structural engineering. And he's part of our international engineering development program. And so he was previously working in the maritime team with us, and he'll be moving on to other parts of the organization as part of this development program. And if anyone's interested or knows anyone who might be interested in joining our engineer development program, please again contact me afterwards. Please note the usual rules apply, usual caveats apply, Chatham House rules apply, and please remember that the information contained in today's presentation and any opinions or comments expressed are those of the presenters and not necessarily those of ABL. At the end of today's briefing, can we please ask everyone to take 3 minutes out of their time to complete the online survey? This is very critical to us, not only for our CPD accreditation, but perhaps more importantly, to allow us to continue to bring relevant topics to you, and we can talk about the things that are of interest. There's a QR code on the screen, and we'll also be following up with an email afterwards. So again, please, if you could take some time to do this, it would really help us moving forward. And again, I know we speak about this a lot, but ABL is proud to be a signatory of the Neptune Declaration on Seafarer Wellbeing and Crew Change. This obviously started during COVID, but it has snowballed into something much larger and much more significant. And it's something that we're still proud to support in the post-COVID age. And many of our own colleagues here in the team come from seafaring backgrounds, so crew welfare is something that's very close to us. And if you, within an organisation or happen to be in a position where you might be able to consider signing up to this declaration, I would certainly urge you to look into it. I'm now going to hand over to Adam for our technical part of the presentation.
Okay, hello everybody. That previous picture up there makes me realise I need a haircut. Okay. Okay, just a few of the learning objectives for today. Hopefully you'll become aware of some of the innovations that we're seeing and are likely to see in the super yacht sector in the near future. Also help to understand how those design innovations affect some of the fundamental ship concepts such as stability and other considerations used in designing vessels. We should also gain some valuable insights into the challenges that those innovations present to designers, builders and engineers, and also possibly a little bit about rules and regulations and how they impact innovation within the yacht sector. And also a little bit at the end there about some of the proposed innovations which we are less likely to see come to fruition in the yacht sector. Okay, just put a picture of some nice yachts up there for you all to look at while I'm speaking. So we work in a very small sector of the maritime industry, but this small sector is highly innovative. So what are the factors driving this innovation, and what challenges does a constantly evolving industry bring? There are some basic marine concepts which have always dictated vessel design across the maritime industry, not just super yachts. And these are things like stability, structure, seakeeping, and security. But can the super yacht sector's desire for innovation start to challenge these long accepted norms that designers use to address these fundamental concepts? And when these fundamental concepts are challenged, what are the risks that they present? And also, when does innovation go too far? I hope to answer some of these today. So where is the super yacht market currently at? The current global environment that we find ourselves in with sort of never-ending wars and the cost of living crisis, with political instability and things like that, it's not really conducive to the super yacht industry. However, it is buoyant. There's still lots of people out there spending hundreds of millions of dollars on super yachts. It's not all rosy, though. There is starting to be some issues with financing for super yachts. There is plenty of money out there, but people are less keen to borrow it. So we might see a move towards more cash buyers, and as a result of that, maybe a slight dip in the market. And if you look long term at some of the super yacht builders' order books, they're starting to look a little bit light. Just looking at some new build trends there. This is information from Boat Pro, so thank you very much. This is a graph there looking at the current new build order book across most of the main builders. Obviously, there's lots more builders, but they're the kind of main ones. And as you'll see there at the top end, the Italian builders, these are the series builders where they build lots and lots and lots of yachts, but possibly slightly smaller ones, lower tonnage, but high volume series builders. You've got Bonetti and San Lorenzo and Ferretti all completely dominating the number of yachts being built at the moment, and a little bit in there from the Brits with Princess and Sunseeker not doing too badly either. So yeah, that's the kind of spread, but we're looking at around about 1,000 super yachts in build at the moment across the world. This represents, well, there's about 12,000 super yachts in the fleet, in the entire global fleet. So this represents about 8% of the global fleet, which compared to the merchant sector, there's currently about 3% of the merchant fleet in build. So that represents, that suggests the super yacht sector is obviously, is quite buoyant, doing pretty well. There's only about 4,000 super yacht owners in the world, so most of them own more than one, obviously. But there are about 450,000 ultra high net worth individuals out there who can afford a yacht. So a lot of emphasis at most of the yards is about trying to encourage some of those people into the yacht industry. Hence why the smaller yacht builders, which you might maybe call a starter yacht, that's why they are so popular, because that's where new yacht owners come into the industry with those smaller vessels. This is just an example here of some of those 1,000 yachts that are currently in build around the world. The starter yacht that we talked about there, up there, the Ferretti, is their new line, is the Infinito 90. It comes in at under 24 meters, but it's actually about 28 meters. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. But yeah, that's the kind of yacht that a lot of people are interested in buying, and that's why those Italian yards are so successful at the moment and building so many. And that's attracting new buyers into the industry. Rev Ocean there. This has been on the cards for a long time. It is built, but it's not completed yet. the completion date now is looking more like 2025. Some issues with the build, but when that's completed and operating, it'll be the world's nearly 200 meters long. It'll be the world's largest ever super yacht, it's operated more of so it's a luxury super yacht, but it's also a scientific research vessel as well. So maybe that is a concept for the future where you have a multi-use of your super yacht. Up at the top there, Project Alibaba, that's being built currently at Lürssen, which is the German builder responsible for building most of the world's largest super yachts. Due for delivery this year, 140 meters long. And as you can see, it's sort of harking back to the more kind of gentleman yacht, you know, that kind of vessel, that kind of look, rather than one of the modern concepts that are out there. This one here, Dream Symphony. The only reason I really put this one up is because of it's quite astoundingly all timber built. So all timber framing, timber hull, which is quite incredible. It is in build at the moment in Turkey, but and they've put a date on there of 2025 for delivery, but it hasn't got a buyer at the moment, and the build has been stalled effectively. So whether that actually ever does get built or not is remains to be seen. But if it does, the innovations needed and the design challenges needed to meet current regulations for a vessel of 141 meters, so well over 500 gross tons, to meet the regulations which have pretty much been written for steel or aluminium vessels with a full timber vessel, the challenges are pretty spectacular and amazing. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it does get built, and it'll be interesting to see how they meet some of those requirements. Moving on a little bit to the smaller yachts, because they are dominating the industry at the moment. The number of yachts coming out in this sort of size range. We used to, in the fishing industry, used to call them rule beaters, but in the yacht industry, they prefer to call them rule optimizers. So the main aim, the main challenge for designers here is to try and get as much yacht as possible within the under 24 meter load line envelope. Just because it's under 24 meter load line doesn't mean it's under 24 meters. Most of these are now closing in on 30 meters long and still managing to come in under 24 meters from a regulatory perspective. If you can keep it under 24 meters, then you don't need to meet the yacht codes, the commercial yacht codes. If you can keep your vessel under 400 gross tons, for example, you can avoid MARPOL. If you can keep your vessel under 500 gross tons, you can avoid ISM and some other firefighting and safety regulations. And unfortunately, that is the way the builders operate, is to try and keep their vessels just below those thresholds. There's a huge amount of resource and some very clever thinking that goes in to try and keep these vessels below those regulatory sizes. So just focusing on the length threshold a little bit, the main strategy that a lot of these builders use, and you can't really see it, you can possibly see it a little bit on that one over there with the swim step. You see the little line down at the aft end. Basically, that entire swim step, that entire aft portion is bolted on. It's not part of the vessel. The same can be said for the bow as well of both of these vessels. They are bolted on bows, and as a result, they're not included in the regulatory length of the vessel. It needs to those bows and sterns need to be considered as removable. There has been definitions for removable bows and sterns. It's the MCA have determined them. As long as that bow or stern doesn't contribute to buoyancy and it's not needed for the normal operation of the yacht, so you can pretty much take it off and the yacht will still operate and not sink. And also it needs to be able to be removed using normal tools. So yeah, you can't it doesn't, you can't gas axe it off. It needs to be unboltable effectively. Then for the hull length measurement, then it can be considered as an appendage and not including hull length. And also, if you can manage to keep it away from this 85% water line, which I'll tell you about in a minute, which is the load line water line, then again, you can avoid including it in your load line length calculations. Right, so just delve into a little bit of maths. You can't really see it very well at the top corner there, but basically this is the definition of the load line length. So you effectively take the main deck, measure down to the inner side of the top of the keel, and then take 85% of that distance. And at that point, 85%, you go across the vessel and measure its waterline length if the waterline was at that level. And then 96% of that length is your load line length. Okay, and that needs to come in at under 24 meters. So it's a complex way of doing it. It's not really related to yachts, but it does definitely apply to yachts. And what it means, that water line that's marked on there, the 85% water line, is never actually going to be the water line of the vessel. The water line of the vessel will be somewhere else. And it doesn't really matter the length of the actual water line of the vessel. So basically, if you can design your vessel so that the swim step, for example, is nowhere near that 85% water line, then the swim step is not included in load line measurement. So nowadays, you're looking at an additional 6 meters really on top of, up to 6 meters on top of that 24-meter load line of additional length, which is not included in the regulatory measurement. Insurance-wise, I think from discussions with insurers, a lot of insurers that only insure large yachts will base this mainly on value rather than length. And nowadays, because of some of these innovations and because of the volume that you're getting in your yacht, these vessels, the value is going up for this size of vessel. So nowadays, you will start seeing, or you'll see more under 24-meter load line vessels that are coming in at like $10 million value and starting to get into that large yacht value threshold. So these do need to start being considered. Right, stability. So large yachts, well, your yachts have to meet stability criteria. If you are a short range yacht, so you only operate within 60 miles of land, then you only need to meet intact stability only. So that's the stability of the vessel where it's completely watertight, no water has entered the vessel at all, and it's operating just okay. A very simple definition of this comes down to the center of gravity, where the center of gravity of the vessel is. Obviously, any weight up high is going to raise that center of gravity, and any weight down low is going to bring it back down again. So designers are aiming at keeping as much weight low down as possible to keep that center of gravity down. If the center of gravity gets too high, as the vessel tips over with wave action or wind, then it's less likely to right itself again afterwards. So you're trying to keep the center of gravity low. Things like sun decks up high, fly bridges, jacuzzis full of water, swimming pools, things like that, heavy tenders, marble interiors, deck furniture, heavy deck furniture, all of these things tend to bring that center of gravity up. But things like making the hull steel construction, that'll help to drive it back down again. And the superstructure aluminium as well helps to keep that down. But a super yacht does suffer from the same kind of challenges that a cruise ship does. The users of that vessel want as much high up space as possible. They want to be up high. They want to have as much deck space high up. And so that is a constant. They don't want all of the cabins low down. They want them high up, looking out with nice windows and everything. Also, deep drafts are not desirable on super yachts. The super yacht owners want to get into the best anchorages. A lot of competition for anchorages in a lot of the cruising areas. And so if you can get closer in, then your guests are going to be happier. The way to achieve this is by having a shallower draft. Shallower draft means a higher center of gravity. And again, you've got that additional challenge for designers. If you are unlimited operation, so you're operating unlimited around the world, then you've also got to meet damage stability criteria, which basically means when one compartment is completely flooded with water, you still need to maintain sufficient stability to pass the criteria. Nowadays, though, owners and guests want big, large, open plan living spaces. They want big tender garages that also become beach clubs. So these are all big open spaces within the vessel. The biggest space on the vessel has to be mathematically flooded, and you have to meet the damage criteria with that space entirely flooded. So a lot of these vessels, these big spaces, are causing them to fail on damage criteria, which then means you have to subdivide that space, and then you start talking about watertight bulkheads and watertight doors in some of those open plan living spaces, which obviously the guests don't want. So that is another challenge there. The other big challenge of open plan living as well is air conditioning. The bigger a space, the harder it is to control the air temperature, humidity in that space, and especially again if there's large windows included as well in that space. And as we've seen, make a mistake with your air conditioning setting on a big yacht in a highly humid area, and the damage that can be caused, and therefore the insurance claim as a result can be very high. Moving on to propulsion, powering and hull form. Some of the things we're seeing, these up in the top corner there, these contra-rotating thrusters for propulsion. These are becoming a lot more popular with super yachts of all sizes. Basically, two propellers rotating in opposite directions. This means there's no long drive shafts and there's no rudders. You don't need a rudder. So there's a lot less reduced drag for the entire vessel, less vibration, there's a reduced wake, they're more efficient, but they are an underwater appendage, and in the event of a grounding, the damage can be pretty catastrophic. They do allow for shallower drafts, but as I said earlier, all that's going to mean is that the captain's going to operate in shallower waters, so it doesn't really help, other than helping getting into better anchorages. Flexible fuel arrangements. Now, this is a massive subject, so I am just going to summarize on this. I'm not going to get into it, but your current options for fueling on a super yacht are diesel, HVO, hydro-treated vegetable oil, methanol, hydrogen, and ethanol. Most of these options require some kind of specific storage arrangement, and most of them need to be planned from build. And due to the specific energy densities of those different fuels, with them being usually less than diesel, most of the alternative fuel choices out there need more storage capacity. And so they result in a reduced volume for guest experience and reduced range for the vessel. And usually they are more expensive than diesel. So sadly, despite all of the advances in this area, almost all of those new build yachts that we talked about are going to be conventional diesel propulsion. And we can see that going forward for many years to come. We might start seeing some more hybrid vessels where you've got a battery storage option, but you've still got a diesel engine. The biggest impact that we think we can see in the sort of sustainability sphere is going to be probably with owners limiting their expectations of things like top speed and cruising speed and the range. Some of these yachts can operate at 35 knots, but they never will operate at 35 knots. They might have 5,000 miles of range, but they'll only ever operate around the Mediterranean, so they don't need that range. So if owners started to lower their expectations a little bit, then that could have a huge impact on sustainability and greenhouse gas emissions. Hull form changes, we're not likely to see anything hugely dramatic in this area. Hull form changes are usually quite conservative. However, there are some new builds coming out, like this one here with a swept bow design, which is pretty groundbreaking. Pretty cool looking. You've got an increased waterline length there, increased hull speed and better sea keeping as a result of that design. But with regards to greenhouse gas emissions, what we think will actually have the biggest impact is a change in operational measures. So, okay, maybe while the owners and guests are not on board, The crew don't need to have all of the spaces air conditioned. They don't need to have all of the lights on. Hull cleaning, where you recover the sort of biofouling, and that's contained. Regular hull cleaning can really reduce your fuel consumption, and we can see results up to sort of 30% fuel savings just through changing operational measures of currently operating yachts. So that's probably where you're going to see the biggest changes in that field. Right, moving on to a sea view. So owners nowadays want much better contact with the sea, and they want to be closer to it, and they want to have better access to the sea. So we're likely to see more hull openings and beach clubs and bathing platforms and things like that. Up in the top corner there, some current designs are utilizing these kind of folding wings and things like that, but we think that'll probably start to die out a little bit, because they do rely on the mechanical operation of those wings, and even though they're very nice and they provide a nice space to lounge and stuff, all it takes is, you know, it's not about if that mechanical operation will break, it's when it will break. And if it breaks during a guest charter or when the owner's on board and you can't get one of those wings up or down as a result, and then you've got the engineer out working on them, that's a bit of a no-go for the owners and the guests. So we're actually likely to see those kind of go away, those kind of fold out platforms and things like that. Nemo rooms, these two here, these are called Nemo rooms. Those are getting increasingly popular. They look great. They offer an amazing experience for the guests. So that's why they're so popular. You get that good contact with the ocean. The challenges, though, of course, the obvious ones. How do you maintain that watertight integrity? That's effectively a part of the hull, which is made of glass or glazing material, right in the point where another vessel's bow, which is a pointy object, might impact them. So you've got the impact risk, you've got the strength of the glazing material itself. A lot of these vessels are unlimited range of operation, so they can go anywhere. So that strength of that glazing material needs to be sufficient. And then the bonding material as well, the way that glazing is bonded to the hull is just as important. And how do you check in the, you know, as this vessel, yeah, it might be good when it's built, all the tests happening, but in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, how are you checking that bonding arrangement, and how do you check to make sure it's still sufficient? Obviously the bonding is equally as important as the strength of the glass itself. So these are all challenges with Nemo rooms, but they're out there, they do exist, and there'll likely to be more of them coming along. And then this one here, this is this wheel cave or command center concept. I'm not aware of any that are in existence yet, hence why the only picture I could find was a submarine, but it's effectively the same concept. The location of a wheelhouse on a super yacht is prime real estate for that super yacht, for the guests and the owners. That's the best place, like literally the best place to see anything on board. It's a space that designers and builders desperately would like not to be a technical space, not to be a wheelhouse. They'd like it to be guest space. So there are some concepts out there. There are some investigations going on of a wheel cave concept, where you effectively push the wheelhouse down below the main deck into the hull, and then rely entirely on things like video, audio, AI presentation of the world around you on windows within that space. So you appear like you're in a wheelhouse, and it looks like you can see out, but you can't. What you're looking at is camera images of the outside. It does exist. They exist on submarines and other naval vessels. So that concept, it does exist. It does work. There are some designs out there at the moment in the super yacht industry, and some thoughts and some research going into developing these further. Obviously, there's still no approval for that. There's no flag state approvals out there for a wheel cave concept, and also just sort of, I suppose, public opinion might prevent that from happening. But we'll see how that goes. It'd be interesting to see if that ever happens. Just a little bit on glazing as well. We talked about it there with the Nemo rooms, but it sort of opens a wider concept. We used to call it glass, and there are very specific rules in glass use on board any kind of a vessel. But these are starting to change now in the yacht codes. It's no longer glass, it's now a glazing material. A glazed opening now means an opening fitted with transparent or translucent material, so it doesn't necessarily have to be glass. And a lot of these materials now are very highly engineered plastics and laminations. Extremely high strength, high impact resistance, able to conform to unorthodox shapes. And obviously this has opened a new avenue down which designers can head for when they're designing their vessels. Windows now will become structural, or have become structural. So things like deadlights and storm shutters, the need for those goes away. The strength has to be sufficient, but things like it still needs to be consideration of how that glazing will perform in a fire, especially if it forms part of a structural member like a bulkhead or a deck or part of the hull. And then also the increased use of glazing. The more glazing you've got, the harder the AC system has to work on board. However, nowadays you can effectively, as a designer, you can design how you want your yacht to be with your glazing materials, and then approach an engineering firm, a glazing material manufacturer, give them the specification of what you're looking for, and through laminations and everything, they can produce that. So you're not having to buy that product straight off the shelf and use whatever's available. Nowadays, those firms can build whatever you need. So we're likely to see a lot more development with glazing materials, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. The future. So the yachting media, as anybody involved in the super yacht world, they regularly publish quite extravagant concept designs for yachts. They get shared around and people start to think that this is the way the yacht industry is going, but it's not. None of these vessels will ever get built. These vessels are purely there so that the designer can demonstrate their skills and start to show off some concepts. And if an owner comes along and says, "Oh, I quite like the look of that. Yeah, here's my check. I want you to design me one of them." What will result at the end of the process will be a far more conventional vessel than the original concept design. So these concepts really are just out there to show what a designer can do and to show some of the things out there. It's a bit of a shame for some of them. We saw a model of this last week. They're still looking for a buyer for that, which is pretty cool, sort of like a submarine stroke super yacht, which is pretty good. But I think the rest of these are never likely to see these built. So some of them it's a bit of a shame, but some of them possibly not. So in summary, for what's going to influence future yacht designs, sustainability. That's going to be a big factor. Hybrid propulsion systems, as I said, with where you've got a diesel main mover, and then you've got the battery energy storage. That'll become standard, we expect. Hydrogen power systems will start to make some inroads, and the industry is already sort of dipping its toes a little bit in hydrogen power, maybe starting with the big sort of one-off yachts and then start to drift down. But I think that's a long time in the future. So we're still likely to see diesel engines going forward a long way. And sailing yachts as well. I've not really mentioned them. Sailing yachts and wind-assisted vessels, they're going to play a much greater role, we think, in yachting and in shipping in general. Smart and autonomous features. So things like AI-driven systems that enable autonomous navigation will develop further, possibly looking to remove the human element almost entirely. But are we morally going to accept this? Who knows? Underwater exploration as well, as I mentioned, with the new glazing materials out there and the new rules governing them. Effectively now, we would, if somebody approached with a transparent, translucent hull that meets all of the hull strength characteristics of a steel hull. You know, the rules are there now to support that. So what are we likely to see? How far is that going to get taken with glazing materials in the hull? Space maximization, again, this has always been a premium on a super yacht, and future designs have to maximize all available space for guest use. But again, stability is going to be impacted by that. Or do the regulators need to change the stability criteria to allow for some of these new design concepts? Privacy and security. I've not really spoken about this. I did previously have a slide on it, but I took it down. But super yachts are now really heavily in the public eye. They are an extreme extravagance and a mouth-watering target for activists. So attacks are going to increase on super yachts, and unfortunately, that means that they will become more and more like fortresses for their owners. But security measures, so as security measures increase, that starts to impact things like access to the vessel, emergency access to the vessel, emergency escape from the vessel, and things like that. And also crew, where they are more and more tied in with NDAs and secrecy contracts. They are less likely to speak up, and we're likely to hear less coming in from the crew as time goes by. And then finally on this, experiential travel. So a yacht charter and yacht owners are looking for more experiences nowadays. Just being on the yacht is not really enough for a lot of the new people coming into the yacht sector. And so things like helipads, water sport facilities, mini submarines and daughter craft and things like that are going to become a lot more important and have a lot more impact on the design of yachts going forward. And that brings me to the end of my presentation on yacht innovations and the challenges that they bring. Thank you very much.